Good morning, starshine.
Welcome to the real world. Whoa! Mortgage your house and buy Bitcoin with breathe air. There's no second best, okay?
GM. Mentioned this in trading analysis. Bulls in control above 65. You've seen this in daily levels. So I want to look at how the next flush could happen. I think we go higher first. So I need some fresh charts. Give me some fresh charts. Right. Give me total 3. Okay, I think the way total 3 is moving here, it's just that it's moved up, consolidated, moved up, consolidated, moved up. It doesn't seem like it's going to just flush from here. I think total 3 might go to those highs. So that might be where you see the FOMO nuke, big wick, downwards candle, or whatever you would call it, coming from. So it continues higher first, then you see a big flush. Like when I'd say like this would be like a big flush back to where it came from. Maybe not even that big, to be honest. I'm not sure if there's a big, massive fucking new candle coming. I just don't think it's really that likely. Check charts. Pull back. Because essentially, most of this rally is just positioning by smart money or early players. The real FOMOing into alts probably has started to some extent, but I think people are still hesitant and fearful. And so, yeah, I think Bitcoin paints a really clear picture for me. This area is primed to catch a wick later on. So I don't know where it's going to come from or when it's going to come. It doesn't tend to come just straight away when you expect it. So if Bitcoin continued up towards 70, that kind of wick would be like something I would expect to see, right? Down into all this, take it all out, fast move, and then away it goes. So obviously at that time, total 3 would probably correlate very similar, where it's had its own overextension, and then it has its own deep wick, and then we grind on. Right, so that's just like rough idea of what I'm expecting. There is a chance that it reverses before then. So like what I mentioned for BTC on trade of the day, daily levels, was the potential for this. This 64.8 on the lower time frame and 65.3. So around this area here. This is basically where Bitcoin needs to stay above in an immediate term and when we come back later, because this is where I think the deeper wick comes from. So if we drop back and it holds, that's fine. If it goes up more and it holds, that's fine. And if it grinds higher from there, that's fine. When it gets below that, whether it's now or later or wherever, I think that's what really opens up, and you have the sharp wick, and that might be where you get the second push as well. And that's how like a big leverage liquidation happens later on, if we get one, and then we proceed to keep rallying. That might not happen until November or until October. That could be the start of October. It could be how October's month begins. Maybe we start rallying hard in October and people think October is going to be super bullish. Like first couple of days, you see here like into October's bullish, let's fucking go, and then carnage. These are all just ideas. What really matters in terms of trading it is that red box for me. Above that we're bullish, below that we could have a deep flush. That's how I see it. And so zooming it in then, looking at our different time frames, as we don't have my EMAs on. I get my 50, 100, 200. moving average, GM. Is that the right one? No, these are SMAs. The one I have in the, maybe I need to save it. So many different. 50, 100, 200. Hang strip for. Ah, here, sorry. Dedicated to Prof. Michael. GM. This one's in the Learning Center for anyone who wants it. So, 50, the 100, and the 200. In daily, they're not back to bullish yet, but they're close. 12 hour, they're crossing over, getting back towards bullish formation. 4 hour, they're bullish. 1 hour, they're bullish, and we've retested and held them. 15 minute, they're bullish. 5 minute, they're bullish. 1 minute, they're bullish. So you're bullish on every time frame below what? Below the 12 hour, which is all building up into it. So if you zoom back out, you're looking for one of the sets that hasn't been tested yet. So 4 hour hasn't had a proper test yet. We touched the 50. That's fine. Your first touch of 50, you get a new move to highs. We got that. So at some point, you're looking at the 4 hour bands to come and get tested. That will cause a crossover in the 1 hour bands. Right? The 1 hour bands will have been fully tested at this point and held. So we're looking at the next pullback, which this again why I think we go higher first. And if it goes up, and then you get a proper pullback, and you've a flush down, that'll flush down into 4 hour bands. Right? And at that point, you'd have the 4 hour bands looking like this, and it would probably be a successful retest of the 4 hour bands. And at the same time, the 1 hour bands would cross probably flat and starting to get bearish. The 50 minute would obviously be bearish. Whichever intermediate time frame crosses bearish, you wait for that one to get reclaimed through the 5 minute up to 50 minute up to 1 hour up to 4 hour. And once they're back in line as early as possible, you get long, you've had your flush, and boom, away we go. That's a successful trend reset and retest. So looking at that across some of these alts. So SUI, if you're just looking from 4 hours, so SUI hasn't had its 4 hour retest yet. It has had a 1 hour retest. It has had 15 minute bands where they cross bearish, and now they're sort of, so like SUI's not having these super strong reclaims anymore. It seems like a bit of momentum running out here. 5 minute again is starting to be choppy. These deep wicks and reclaims, that looks more like a lower high bounce to me than a potential new high coming. And it looks fine. Obviously wouldn't short it here, but I would rather wait until you see SUI have its first proper pullback and reset into these bands. Let me see if there's an example here I can show you, just to highlight what I'm talking about. So over here, if we go back, here you get your first proper retest, right? So all the way up, you had this wick down along the way, but SUI was well above its 4 hour trend all the way, all the way, all the way. It looks like it's never going to stop. Then what do we get? Proper pullback into the bands. So the 4 hour bands never cross bearish in this phase here. The 1 hour bands do. They cross bearish over here. So that's your early warning sign, or here, sorry. That's your early warning sign on SUI that the 4 hour trend is probably going to get fully tested. Remember that the 4 hour 200, see if I just put on an EMA and show you the 200 EMA on the 4 hour to highlight this. Put this as a thick line. So I need to put it as a 4 hour, right? So there. So once you start to see the 1 hour trend, it's holding. 1 hour trend starts to fail, comes back, it goes to the 4 hour. The 1 hour bands are bearish. You're waiting to see the 1 hour bands get back into bullish formation, which happens over here, right? At that point, you've got a structure break, you've fully tested the 4 hour bands, and away you go. Now, as you're looking at that, that will get you an entry around there if you're using the 1 hour for the reclaim. If you go one lower, you'll see how the 15 minute builds into the 1 hour. So bear in mind there'll be fake outs on the 15 minute. 15 minute goes bearish, then it goes bullish again. Don't fall into the trap, it goes lower. 15 minute goes back to bullish again, but that's where you're keeping an eye on your higher time frame. 15 minute was bullish here, but the 1 hour wasn't, right? And we hadn't tested fully the 4 hour. So then it goes back down. Then you get the 4 hour 200 EMA retest, and your 15 is bearish, obviously. Your 1 hour is bearish until here, right? So this is where the 1 hour gets bullish again. But the 15 minute, this is the point of EMAs, is that they build into each other if you do it correctly. The 15 minute crossover happens around here. So it gets you a slightly earlier entry if you're using it correctly. The reason you don't buy the 15 minute reclaim here is because you've seen a break, you've seen clear weakness, and you're waiting for the 4 hour to get full retest. So hopefully that makes sense. This is just this is pretty standard stuff. This is classic just EMA trading. You use the same bands. Doesn't have to be 50, 100, 200. Use whatever you want. And you use them on multiple time frames. Time frames build into each other in trends. This style works in trends, strong trends. This would not have worked really at all over the past 6 months. We clearly have strong trends here. So this is Sui's 1 hour trend. Even the 1 hour trend on Sui has been unbroken since the 6th of September, right? So if I zoom out again, and we're looking at this, I would be looking at this saying that Sui needs probably some really aggressive chop for a while and maybe defend that 4 hour trend and then be able to pop off for its final push to all-time highs. I say final push. I don't know where it's going to end up, but you get the idea. These bands are still super wide apart, so you're probably first going to see a move into the 50 that holds and it comes back up. There's probably a lot of chop to come on Sui, a lot of false rallies, and then you finally get that touch, right? Let's just imagine it's around there. You get a dip down, rally back up. This is where people FOMO. You get a dip down, they buy that dip again, they're wrong. Finally comes to 200, then you flip down, look at your 1 hour, look at your 15 minute, or whatever time frames you use. And that should be a way of getting yourself the best entry, and that's when it goes off towards all-time highs. Understand? That then gives you a full reset on the 4 hour. It gives you probably some decent kind of trend pullback from top to bottom here. Yeah, like a 25 down to 30 or 40% pullback, which is fairly standard in a strong trend. And there you go. This is not what's going to happen exactly. I hope you understand the logic of it. The patience is required to wait for it to come back to its 200. That's what matters. Then use your lower time frames to build into it and trade it from there. And you can apply that to anything. This is going to be happening across all of these coins over the next while. Some of them are in earlier uptrends than others. So if you're looking at like Aptos, for example, what might happen is it'll first dip into its 50 and then it'll have continuation. At that point, if it's dipping into the 50, you're probably going to see the 1 hour bands getting close to crossing bearish. Of course, you're going to see the 15-minute bands bearish as they are almost ready right now. And so you're watching to see those build again. Maybe you take out some liquidity. Maybe the bands come back into line. And that's how you get long. We're still early enough in these trends for this to be the most probable outcome. They are just coming out of the bottom and just at the very start of the new uptrend. This is the absolute worst time to be bearish and coping. This is not a bearish setup. It's not going to just immediately moon. That's why you wait patiently. But if you do, you'll do well. Now, there you go. Free system idea. Why don't you spend the rest of the weekend grinding through 50, 100, 200 trend trading across multiple time frames, seeing how they build into each other. You don't have to use the 15 minute. Why don't you use the 30 minute, the 2 hour, the 6 hour, and the 12 hour? Just think about it.